Okie dokie. We are live here. We are live, and I just woke up not too long ago, like I always do. I always take naps before I do this shit. I can't help it. I'm always tired. I'm always sleeping. And I don't want to just be always sleeping. So I had an idea here, actually. It was a conversation I got into with my friend. And this conversation was about, Sony games and how, you know, how good they were, how good the quality is. And then I started thinking to myself, who exactly do I be rooting for when I play a Sony game? I didn't know. I didn't know. And then I was like, do I like the Sony game as a whole, or is there a favorite character that I like? And that kind of prompted me into making this topic. By the way, this is another episode of a loud discussion. So you know I'm not one for intros or outros. So let's just get straight to the point. If you are on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're on Twitter, hit that follow button. If you are on Twitter as well, I have a YouTube channel that is called Illicit Therapy. I do some RP shit, and I do some most of my shit is gaming. So let's begin. Let's begin. The conversation was very interesting. It was an interesting conversation, right? Because when you think about Sony games, right? When you think about Sony games, you think about quality, right? That's what everyone says. And I'm supposed to be saying it's all about the quality. It's all about the quality. That's what I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm supposed to be saying. But, right? And it's not like it isn't quality when it comes to PlayStation games. It's just that what am I getting invested? What am I being invested in? Is it the graphics? Is it the storyline? Is it the gameplay? And it's a little bit of everything minus characters. Just plumb straight up, Sony to me, and I'm going to receive a lot of hate for this. I'm going to receive a lot of hate, but look, I can only be honest and nothing more, right? I can only be honest and nothing more. And I want you guys to be honest too. I really do. I want you guys to be honest. Who's your favorite PlayStation character, right? No, better yet, right? Who is your favorite Nintendo character? Some people will say, Mario. Mario's cool. Other people may say Link from Zelda or Metroid, or even if you go to different publishers, right? Who's your favorite character in Final Fantasy? They'll say Cloud probably would be one, or if it's Capcom, they're like Leon. And that gets me to thinking, right? Now ask yourself this question after you ask yourself, who's your favorite protagonist for each third party, right? And then ask yourself for each third party game, and then each publisher, that is either Nintendo or Microsoft, right? People may say that they like Dominic from Gears of War, or they like Master Chief from Halo, right? They may say this stuff. But when you ask yourself this question, and we want to go all the way back to PlayStation 1, when there was Wipeout with Sony, that's a Sony IP. There was Gran Turismo, also Sony's IP. None of them are protagonists, so you can't really say anything like that. I guess per rapper to rapper, but again, there were other characters that's in there. But for Sony's own games, who is your favorite protagonist? And I guarantee you will have a hard time saying stuff from back then. The protagonist issue started coming up, I will say, maybe PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, late PlayStation 3. Then you start getting, the protagonists, they start fleshing out the characters and whatnot. So let's go to PlayStation 2, right? Who is your favorite protagonist for PlayStation 2, right? Okay. Well, what games were released for PlayStation 2 that was Sony's? Kratos. But Kratos was such an angry person. Nobody really cared too much about Kratos. They cared about what he was doing. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that he was such a badass character until really PS3, but let's stick to PS2. Um, who else? Jack and Daxter? Well, Jack was the main character. You know what I'm saying? But nobody really cares about Jack. Why? And we want to get into that. Because Sly Cooper, yet again, that game kind of fell to the wayside for a lot of different reasons. You know what I'm saying? So no one really say anything about that. And then you have Ratchet and Clank. Again, that was, if you look at Sony and how they position things, especially from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 3, it was a game as a whole for why you liked that game. See, when you talk about Konami, right, people will like Solid Snake, right? They'll have particular characters that they like. When you talk about Square Enix, then they'll say Cloud. When you talk about Resident Evil, you'll say Leon. When you talk about, what is it, Master Chief, like I said before, it's the character that kind of leads the game, and that gives you more of a connection. So, we're going to talk about what makes a main character or a protagonist the shit. What's going on, Shadow? This is an interesting conversation, right? So if you want to jump in, you can jump in there. So a lot of people don't want to hear this shit, right? A lot of people don't want to hear this. And I don't, honestly, as a PlayStation fanboy, right? Let me put you right in there. What's going on, Devil Shooter? What's going on, Shadow? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome, awesome. People ain't gonna want to have this conversation.
No, you sound far away.
Do I still sound far away?
No, not no more now.
Okay, it's probably Twitter doing this thing. So my conversation is this, and this is the meat and potatoes of this particular conversation. And I'll get straight to the point. People don't want to hear this. That's PlayStation. You know how Twitter is. But Twitter is really run by PlayStation fans. Let's keep it a buck. You can't say shit wrong about PlayStation. You'll get ousted on Twitter. So me and my friend had a conversation yesterday. I was just it was churning in my head about different types of like different games and stuff like that. And I thought about this. When it comes to PlayStation exclusives, right? It really boils down to the whole game. But there's no character that you can relate to into the later years of PlayStation, like PS4, some of PS3. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no, like, you know, when you talk about Xbox, you have Master Chief, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about PlayStation? Who's your character? Who would be your character, even if you don't have it? Who would you kind of no? Before you even answer PlayStation, right? What about Nintendo? Who's your favorite Nintendo character?
Mario.
Mario. Why?
Well, you said favorite, or when first comes to mind?
First comes to mind.
Oh yeah, Mario. Nintendo Mario, because like Mario's like literally the marquee of Nintendo.
But why do you like him?
You said, why do I like Mario?
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, Mario's gameplay has always been very, fun, linear, and nostalgic, And at least in Mario games, they, have something, new to the table as far as like new levels, new challenges, new power-ups, new characters that you can play, new puzzles, 2D and 3D integration, things like that. Mario's a pretty ass game, and they always deliver.
What's going on, Stranded? I really appreciate you dropping by. So, what about PlayStation?
PlayStation for me, I would have to say between Sly Cooper or Jin Sakai, in my opinion. Or even Spider-Man.
No, you can't count him. You can't count him. Nah. That's too easy. Get him out of here. that's not even Sony. You know what I mean?
Okay. well, let me rephrase. When we say Sony, I immediately think of Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper first.
Okay. Now let's go to third party. When you think of Square Enix, who do you think about as a character? Your favorite character, if you fuck with them.
Whew. I would say Noctis Lucis Kylo.
I'm not familiar with that. Who is that?
He's the main character of Final Fantasy 15.
Okay. Okay. So why do you like that character? Name one.
Well, to be honest with you, I made him in Tekken 7.
Okay. Okay. So he got to be like a swag or something from him. You know what I mean?
Huh?
It got to be a swag with him or something that you kind of gravitate to.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about how he fights, his play style. He was a very interesting protagonist in Final Fantasy 15, even though I didn't play it. But I played Tekken 7. He was a guest character, and I know he's from Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy is Square Enix. So I just played him, and he became my main. I like the way he is, his play style, his damage, his attacks, everything is just screams of what I like about a certain character in Tekken.
Got you. Now, going on to YouTube because people are looking at me on YouTube as well. They're mentioning Link. They like Link for Nintendo. Somebody says Jack and Dexter / Kratos for PlayStation. Someone says Solid Snake when you mentioned Konami. Another person says Nathan Drake, Cloud, Aya from fucking from Parasite Eve. My point is this, right? One of the problems that I was always thinking, I never really thought of this. PlayStation doesn't really have characters that, except for Kratos, really, that are like they're ageless. You know what I mean? Like they're so based off of like reality, they get older. You know what I mean? Like Aloy would get older. Drake did get old. What's her name? Ellie got older. You know what I mean? And it's like you can't attach yourself to those characters. And then that led me to believe, because I thought that was the problem. But it's like Sony's games seem to be like the whole game is great. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look at the game as a whole versus looking at the game like a character that leads it, and then you like everything else about it. You know what I mean? Like for me personally, when I think of Konami, I think about Solid Snake. Then I start thinking about all the characters. For me personally, for PlayStation, my characters, it's not that many. One of them is even nameless, the Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus. Right? The other one is actually Joel Miller. And I start thinking to myself, why do I like these characters? Then I start thinking really hard as to what makes a really good protagonist, right? And I came up with a couple of things, and I want to ask you, what do you think of this? And see if it aligns with things. So I say a main great, why did I put it like that? I fucked up on a tweet, whatever. A great character, main character, has these things. They usually have badass action moments, right? Or you have the ability to make you laugh. They have multiple emotional transitions, expressive body language, or signatures. So when it comes to Solid Snake, he has the expressive body language, and then he has a signature, which is the cigarette, right? And he also has crazy ass badass scenes where he, like the George Washington Bridge, where he jumps off of the bridge backwards, you know, shit like that. You know what I mean? And they check all those boxes where you can relate to the main character. And it comes to the Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus. He doesn't have a badass moment. He's doing badass things, but his is his body language. He always looks like he's struggling. You know what I mean? And he's always like, he's trying to overcome these crazy fucking odds. And then when he speaks, he's so determined, and you can see his story arc, right? He's not a one-dimensional character, even though you don't know his name. You see that he gets there, He's determined. Then he realizes like shit is about to like something's not right, but I have to see it through because I really want this girl to be alive. And he does it regardless of his consequences. And you see that he starts to mature at that point, and then he's if you played it, you played it. If you know, you know. So how do you think about that? Do you agree with that sentiment of those bullet points?
Um, I think for me, it's literally based upon like I look at it in a different approach. Like, you know, I like, depth, lore, see if, a specific character it has their own ideals or, has a certain story to where it really grabs me. It really piques my interest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I really look at when it comes to a specific protagonist or a single player game, if you will, that has that element.
Right.
So I begin to look into it if they can grasp me from, the beginning or later on through in the story. Because, I mean, there has been a couple of games I played to where it's like I just can't necessarily get with it for real. And then there's
You have any
games
examples, by the
where I
way?
can be like,
Yep.
I can relate to that. I could be like, okay, yeah, I get this character. So
You have any examples when you can't get with it? A game in particular that you can remember that's like, I'm not feeling this character really.
okay, so this is going to be an unpopular opinion, so cancel me if you will, but Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm sorry. Cloud is just very dull and boring. Um, don't get me wrong. I do like Cody Christian as an actor and as a voice actor. I've watched plenty of his shows. He was on All American seasons 1 through 5. So, like, if you want me to be all the way honest, I know the voice actor who's playing behind Cloud. Now, him playing as Cloud, on the other hand, is not necessarily exactly like how I envisioned Cody Christian playing as a voice actor. Like, I was, maybe expecting a little bit more, so to speak, but he's just so quiet to me. Like, it's just kind of like the very first level, he was just very nonchalant all throughout infiltrating that, reactor core mission or whatever. It just was like, it's supposed to be, thrill seeking, something exciting, something that, has a little bit more attitude in it. It's just like, I'm just going in here just to attack this reactor core and I'm about to death with this group. That's exactly how I feel. That's from my opinion. That's how I look at it. So that's why I can't, really get into Final Fantasy. Oh yeah, so that's just story lore wise. I'm not even referring to the gameplay. So
Sometimes if the character ain't with it, you can't like you know what I mean. Like you gotta have a driving force and a motivation. So do you feel like do you have to relate to the character, like if they have something in common with you, or do you feel like if you can understand where the character is coming from, which one would you prefer?
I prefer both because that would actually keep me playing the game even more, even longer. Like for example, Ghost of Tsushima, Jin Sakai. You pretty much know how that went through, right? I mean, everybody played it at some point. So, he's doing everything in his power to, get his uncle back from the mongrels and everything like that. So, I mean, him, being by himself of the Sakai clan and, going around through like each village or, maybe an outpost and saving people, assisting people, try to build an, actual army of his own to invade the Mongol territory. I think that's pretty thrill seeking. That's pretty fun, you know? So,
He was a very see people. I feel like Sony is starting to hit their stride of creating characters other than having like sidekicks and shit like that to kind of flesh out the character. Because when it comes to Naughty Dog, they started to sidekick, kick, if you will, with the Jack and Daxter series. You know what I mean? The fucking Jack didn't even say anything. They used Daxter to do all the talking. You know what I mean? So my thing is this: like for me, Jin Sakai, he went from being overly emotional, where his uncle had him to tame it. You know what I mean? And then you realize that he finally tamed it, and he had his moral compass. But it was like, shit. If you want this to work, man, this ain't it. I ain't going. I'm not going to be. I'm not willing. And he confronted his mentor, like, you got it. Even though I have respect for you, you got this shit wrong. Like, I get your morals, but like, you gonna let the whole fucking island collapse because your pride? No, I ain't doing all that. That's not what I signed up for. And then you realize, what regardless of what you've done at the end of the game, you realize that when you played the DLC, he had some massive family issues. You know what I mean? He just, his father wasn't that great. It was a really, he was fleshed out to them, and you understood it. And he's a badass character. My only regret is that he's going to age. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Um, I personally like the fact that characters go through, I guess, their coming of life, or they go through this progression where they have a set um personality, and then something happens where it breaks them down, and you get to see the different emotional traits. Like the same thing with The Witcher. The Witcher, you could, at first he was really stoic, and then the more he's talked to people, and the more he starts to realize like shit is on the line, I'm going to, you look, you start to see little pieces of him. And even when characters are like jackasses, he's like, I think you're overdoing it. You know what I mean? Like he'll try to step in and like, you're doing too much and stuff like that. You start to get his character. My thing is this: Sony doesn't have that. They don't do anything badass until, I would say, not when I say, I'm making a blanketed statement for the people that's on YouTube that's listening. For the most part, PlayStation doesn't have characters that do badass things up until recently. You know what I mean? That's another thing that Jin Sakai did. You know what I mean? Like that whole scene where he sliced the fucking dude's head off. Like that shit was bad. And just in general, fucking his master of the sword is really crazy. So, but you have what? Kratos didn't really do anything crazy. He didn't have a story. He had a story arc, but it was so one dimensional. And I say this because you didn't see Kratos' like transitions. I mean, you saw like, all you knew is that he was a really good like general, and he didn't want to die. He called for his, the god to protect him, and then he killed the person, and then the god betrayed him, and then he was just angry the whole time up until what do you call it? God of War 2018. Then you saw the different nuances and stuff like that. Then they started to understand. So maybe it's just me, Shadow. What do you think that Sony can make good protagonists in general?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean,
Besides Jin Sakai, you know what I mean?
ooh.
That's I'm. Hey, look,
I mean,
it is what it
who
is.
was the protagonist's name in Infamous? I forgot. What
Cole,
was that
Cole
person's name?
McGrath, if you talk about PS3, and then it was Delson. You see what I mean? You shouldn't be having to be like, who is what? Who's that guy
I,
again? That's how you
I
know
like
something's
those
wrong.
guys. Those guys are pretty cool.
You like their powers, though.
Okay, I'm trying to be as more narrative and character based as much as possible without including any gameplay or graphics. So that's my fault. But
No, you cool. If you don't remember the characters, that was the problem that I had with other PlayStation fans when I was speaking to them. They couldn't, for the life of them, understand. They couldn't understand it. They were like, "Well, I don't. Who is that person?" You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got to do all that, like, something's wrong to me. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like something's wrong if you can't remember the protagonist like that.
I mean, well, I don't think there's nothing wrong. It's just some characters can be perceived as forgetful than others, and some characters people really remember and keep that legacy alive in some franchises and stuff. So I mean, it just depends on who's a fan of who, and what can continue on with the sequel and everything, or a reboot or whatever. I mean, look at God of War with Kratos.
But he was
That
very
shit.
layered. He was they made him more layered than ever. Not you get more of his backstory. If you know anything about Greek history, you know that they were brutal. So that's not out of the character, the stuff that he was doing anyway.
Mhm.
Because to become a Spartan, you got to be all sorts of crazy. That's number one, regardless of the mythology. But, but now you can see that he's trying to change from that shit. He has a son, and he's like, yo, I'm in a different world. I can't be doing all this shit. And it has consequences. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, I don't want somebody to be like me. You know what I mean? And then you finally see Kratos soften up to the point where he can finally smile. You remember that one scene where he drank the alcohol with his son, and he finally, you know what I mean? Like you finally see Kratos in a different light, and they give you a payload at the end of that shit. You know what I mean? Like you see like the same thing with Joe Miller. That's why people were so pissed when he died, because they build up this thing where something tragic happened. He became hardened. This little girl was chipping away at his exterior till she finally got him, and you start seeing the lovable side of Joel Miller, and then that happens, and it's like, damn, I didn't, you know what I mean? I don't like the fact, or you have characters that make you laugh, like Drake, you know what I'm saying? And I notice the same thing happens with Marvel movies, where this is what they've been doing. They will make you laugh. They crack jokes and stuff like that, and that's why people like Peter Parker, Deadpool, you know what I'm saying? Shit like that, because they either make you laugh, they have some badass moments. You know what I mean? Spider-Man did when he grabbed the guy with the arm. I forgot what his name was, and he's like, "You got a metal arm," or you have Deadpool doing the crazy shit that he was doing. It happens with every like. I feel like humans are like really like basic bitches. You know what I'm saying? Like we like the simple shit. We like the simple shit, and I feel like Sony tries to go out and try to be way too nuanced. The problem with Ellie is that she was in suffer. She didn't have a growth. She didn't have a. She did not have a gratifying coming to life, like emotional transitions. And the same thing with Abby. She was. They were just one note because they were always fucking angry. It's the same. You know what I mean? But from beginning to the end, you didn't see the other sides where she was so pissed the whole time. And the same thing with Abby. Abby was so driven by revenge, and the little thing that you saw, it was too little, too late, and that's not a savory thing. To you don't like characters like that. They're not making you laugh. They're not doing anything badass. Or if they're just so much of a douchebag, you start to not like them. With anybody. Mario, you mentioned. My favorite character for Nintendo is actually Kirby. Kirby doesn't say a fucking word, but his animations, he's very expressive. Everything that he does, he puts his whole body and soul into it. You know what I mean? When he kicks you and does this, he's sloppy, but he just needs to get the job done. He don't care if he hurts himself. He's trying so hard, and the same thing with the Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus. For Mario, even though he's a fat plumber, yo, this dude is badass. This dude is doing fucking somersaults and backflips and bouncing off of the. He's just straight up parkour all day, yo. You know what I'm saying? And that shit looks so fucking cool, and you have a sense of freedom within your world, and that's what makes it fun. Mario is just a badass, you know what I mean? Even when he's shooting fucking Hadoukens, still when in Smash Brothers, you know what I mean? He's just a badass character. So I feel like Sony just, for the longest, I'll put it that way. This is my little asterisk. For the longest, they just weren't able to have characters that have a specific signature. God of War did. He has his blades of chaos or whatever the blades are called. And he's like one of the few that was like, you know what I mean, had all of the hit a lot of these notes. You know, Joel Miller had his watch, that was his signature. His body language, the stuff that he would do in the cutscenes, where he used to have to do it in the kneecap, and he was like, "I'll bust your kneecap" and shit like that. I mean, those things were like really cool. And I just feel like Sony has a problem. They had a problem, and they're getting to the basics. Like I love me some Horizon, Forbidden West, and just but Aloy is just not it. Usually, when you make a female character, I hate to say it, but when they're sexualized or doing badass things, it makes you gravitate to the characters, whether you're a man or woman. Laura Croft, there was a lot of women that loved her and played cosplay because she would do some badass shit. Aloy is just okay, fine. She shoots arrows and can slide and shoot, but she's not doing anything crazy in the cutscenes. She's always willing to help people, and she's kind of one note. You don't see any other emotion but what determination. She has everything. She's smart. She's strong. Like, and this makes for a dull ass character. You know what I mean? When they don't have flaws, and I feel like that's the problem. What do you have to say about that?
About Aloy?
About just PlayStation and them making characters that don't seem to be very memorable. You know what I mean?
I think that certain characters are memorable if they, actually have more action and more, in depth and stuff like that. Like with Ghost of Tsushima, like people still play that still to this day. People still mentioning Ghost of Tsushima still to this day. I feel like the only reason why people are still mentioning Horizon Forbidden West and, Aloy and stuff like that is because it's just the newest, game that's, out there that's PlayStation, But there's also other new single player PlayStation games that has protagonists that also came out this year too. But it's just this year it's just Aloy, in my opinion. Well, I forgot God of War comes out later this year. So it'll probably be between those two, either Aloy or Kratos. I don't know who's more popular. In my opinion, I think it's Kratos over Aloy, but
Kratos for most people. Over most of these motherfuckers, yo. So, there's that. So, all right. So for 2023, looking back for like a year, from 2020 to 2022, I'll say that. Who will be your memorable character for PlayStation?
In 2022 or 2023?
No, from 2020 to 2022. The duration of the PlayStation life.
I would have to say Jin Sakai.
he just go to. I'm sorry, like it's funny because of my friend. He was like, "Yo, I really did like him," and he was saying that he was dry. Oh shit! Somebody was in there.
I don't think that he's dry. Like I think that he's cool, calm, well collected, and he's just doing whatever he can to rebuild his clan. Like that's what any man would do to build their family back up. Like
This is true. Well, listen, I don't want to hold you or anything like that. If you wanted to kind of stay for the last topic or anything like that, it's just that I heard, and I'll let Jemiah speak here. I know he wanted to speak, but I heard that Sony is. No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that Sony is doing anything, but I do see that Valve, and there's a lot of talk about Sony in general, like not supporting Japanese culture and stuff like that. But supposedly, the Steam Deck is doing like really well. That could be a problem for Nintendo, but I was thinking, should they make should they have another stab at it, with the handheld? But before I answer that, or before I let that topic go, yo, Jemiah, what's going on, man?
What's up?
I don't look at the chat, and I apologize, man. 'Cause I was trying to do a quick ass fucking show, whatever the case is.
I seen you out here sweating my girl Aloy on that, and I said, photo right now.
I mean, you ain't beat the game on New Game Plus anyway, so I mean,
This is my only problem is like different people take different things from different interactions. So like people look at Joel like, oh, Joel's a great character. Like to me, I'm like, Joel was a regular dude, bro. I don't understand why people are in love with Joel. To me, it makes no sense. You know what I mean? And then people look at Aloy and say she's boring, whatever. But like, she was an outcast. She was raised to be alone. She's no nonsense. She's about getting work done. Like, if you can't put yourself and immerse yourself in that world and that character, then you're doing it wrong to me. Like, people just take what their own experience is and they try to pilot it and put it onto a character and say this is what this character should reflect because this is my opinion. Like, no, like you have to take the character in the world for what it is and immerse yourself in that world, not put all your bullshit and your baggage into a character. You know what I'm saying? So, like, people constantly say Halo is boring, but like Kratos says like 3 words the whole fucking game, and everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna cry. It's like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Kratos is boring as fuck. All this business is boring, garbage shit. Nigga throw some ashes on the mountain and everybody fucking crying. Like, come on, bro. Like, y'all, like, nah, we're not doing this, bro. We're not doing this today, son. That's like, I can't believe people like Kratos, so they give him all this fucking, they give him all this leeway. But people don't like Aloy, so Aloy is boring and she doesn't speak and she's gruff and all this shit. The same thing with Kratos. He's the same character. You know what I mean? I don't get why people love Kratos but hate Aloy. And to me, that makes no sense. I mean, Drake's an expert. Drake's somebody new. He like makes a bunch of jokes and shit, so people can relate to that. But like, I just feel like people only relate to things that they're into, and they don't give the different experiences like the chance to grow or like become a part of their love or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I don't like this girl because she's mad, fucking off-putting, whatever nonsense, yada yada yada. Like Deacon to me was mad and annoying, but over time I grew to like Deacon. You know what I mean? So like, I think people never get these characters chances. They just come in with their own opinions about the character, and then at the end of the game, they're like, I don't like this character. You know what I mean? Like how your boy played the whole game and didn't even know how to do certain things. You know, or those certain story beats because he was just playing the game just to play it, just to beat it. He wasn't playing the game to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
So I'm going to say this when it comes to Kratos, right? It's not that Kratos has that much over Aloy. I think people, like I said this earlier to Shadow, and shout out to Shadow. I'll tweet him out for joining in there. I really appreciate that. But I think what's going on is that I left some what I think would make a good character or makes a good character, and that's having like badass action moments. You know what I'm saying? Or the ability to make you laugh, or having multiple emotional transitions, which I think that Aloy lacks. Expressive body language, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole Kirby thing, or some characters don't need to say shit at all. You got Mario, he don't really talk like that, but he's doing backflips and somersaults that it just looks fun, you know what I mean? Or just have signatures, you know, like a cigarette in the mouth, or a toothpick, or a hair pick, or bandanas, you know what I mean? Shit like that. Something that kind of identifies the character. And it's like, well, Aloy has great art. You know what I'm saying? She's modeled after a model, you know. But we don't see the ups and downs of the character. As I'm playing The Witcher, there's ups and downs of that character. And
like when Rose died after improving, like there's so many parts of the
I know, but it's like because but hold on, Jemai, it's like it's fleeting though. Like it's not like you gotta let things kind of stew, and that's just 101 when it comes to a lot of different characters. It's a 101 thing. It's like
what your opinions of your own experiences too can determine how you feel about the character, because you're saying that she didn't have the ups and downs, but she had plenty of ups and downs throughout the games. Like I don't understand. Like people are acting like all Kratos did was go to a different place, kill a bunch of people that he shouldn't have killed, and bang some chick, and then she had a kid. Like, come on, bro. I'm like,
we're not. No. That's hold on, wait. That's what I was saying. Hold on, wait. That's why I was saying what I was saying. So like there was a transition, right? Right. The God of War, I mentioned that before, from the PS2 to the PS3. There really wasn't. He was also like he didn't have multiple emotional transitions. You know what I'm saying? And up to 2018 God of War. That's when they start showing different sides of him being content or happy or whatever the case is. When he was just like straight on angry. I mean, we got it. In terms of Aloy, it's fleeting. You know, it's quickly. They don't like linger on it. I know that she's trying to press on. That was a really emotional and a nice scene, but like they didn't really allow that to kind of like marinate, you know, those particular things.
Royce, when she's talking to fucking spoilers and shit, when she's talking to Beta and shit, and then why she's so different from Beta. So like the thing is also God of War has like 10 games and shit. Like Of course, people are gonna have more affinity for Kratos and shit because they've been playing him since they were a kid. But like, Aloy has never been given a chance ever. You know this from day one. She has never ever been given a chance. 20 million people bought Horizon for Zero Dawn. I doubt that he even played the fucking game to beat it, or he just played the game and that was it. Because the opinions of Aloy, like this boring character to me, is crazy. Like, I don't understand, like, how Kratos can make one game and all of a sudden he was like super emotional and all this shit, and everybody can feel with him because he's a dad and all this dumb shit. And then you have Aloy here going through every emotion in the book, fucking trying to prove her way, making her way, fighting her way, fucking trying to save the world. And people are like, not too far. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah, well, yeah. I think the problem is also Stranded also said this too. He said that the PSP games gave a lot of context to his, because they were kind of prequels. You know what I mean? It gave a lot of context to what he was doing and stuff like that. So I get it. They made it more bombastic and more action. And then when he had time to allow him to stretch his legs on a PSP because they needed a different experience, they allowed to see him with Calliope and what he needed to do, and they had like really cool mini games with Calliope and stuff like that. So I get that. My main point is this, right? Jeremiah, who's your favorite character out of the PlayStation stable from PlayStation 2 to 5? If you can name one.
as far as like main characters,
Yeah,
like,
only main
like,
characters, only main characters, not no side characters, main characters.
damn, Sony doesn't really have a lot of it's like, to be honest. I don't have to say like it's like I like Drake, but I think Drake is old. He's always, you know what I'm saying. Drake's shit gets old.
He's a one-dimensional character. I mean, he makes you laugh, but he don't have a lot of depth until the PS4 version. Really, that's the
I
only
mean,
time that
it's
he had
like
it.
I'm sure before that he has like when he gets with Elena and all that nonsense. It's more like emotional
Right.
when he's like, yeah, like, but like, Sony has never really had a bunch of like mainstay mascots. Let's be honest. But so I guess I would just say Aloy. Really, I just love Horizon Zero Dawn's world, and I love Aloy's character. And she's such a departure from what people think a protagonist should be. People get. I mean, she's operating in this world. Like, she's not out here clapping. She's out here fucking shaking her ass. She's out here twerking. You know what I mean? She's not out here belittling people. She's just a straight up wholesome character that's trying to do good. And somehow people are against that. He's like Kratos over here killing everybody. You know what I mean? Smashing hookers and shit. Like, that's fucking awesome for them. He's like Joel and goddamn fucking a bad guy. Ex-bandit, ex-killer. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, he takes his little girl for a fucking 2-day trip. And everybody's in love with this dude like he's some kind of goddamn hero. So I still understand the fan base is choice and who do you like and who do you don't like when it comes to Sony. But like you said, Sony doesn't have a bunch of characters. Crash Bandicoot was like a mascot for them, but it was never really their character. They have Uncharted. I guess you have like Days Gone. Deacon's kind of a fucking. He's a cool character, but he's like, you know what I mean? He's not compelling, I would say.
Oh, we got Stranded in here. My bad. I didn't know this was going to be a popular topic. Maybe it's toxic. This is the toxicity of it. That's what I think is going on. Yo, J Worm. I'm sorry, my bad. I thought because you stopped. Okay, go on, man. What you got to say about all this? And then I'll let Stranded talk.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for bringing me up, man. I hope y'all y'all three now. I hope y'all three are doing pretty good tonight.
Absolutely. About the game.
Yeah, yes, sir. So, I'll be honest, and I'll just say this, like, just straightforward. I have never played Horizon, the first one, Zero Dawn, or the new one. So, I can't speak on the game itself or the character. But, is it Jemiah? Jemiah. Okay. So, I wanted to challenge you on that whole point that you were making about Kratos. Because I think the reason why I feel like Kratos is so beloved now is because, and I think it kind of plays into the whole fact of like what makes a good, not even just a good protagonist, a good character. And that's the layers that you were able to see throughout the entire game of what Kratos kind of had to go through as far as like facing his traumas from, just everything from where he was in Sparta, having to kill all those old gods and go to war with Zeus and kill his own father. And I think he died like, I don't even know how many times, 2-3 times, something like that. Like, so he had to go through all that, come to a new land, start all over, marry somebody, had a child, his wife dies at the beginning of the game, and now, they have to go on this entire journey, and like he has absolutely, you're talking to someone who has absolutely no relationship with their child at all. It's literally just like he calls him boy for half the game. And so like, it's just like when you peel back all the layers of all the things that he had to endure and he had to be able to experience, and certain things that he actually did experience, to find out that like he really does love his child at the end of the day. I mean, I think that like that's an amazing fucking job that they did with Kratos, in my opinion.
So what are you challenging them on?
I think it's just the simple fact of how like a lot of the stuff that I explained, like you kind of glossed over when it came to Kratos, and it's like, well, people are just making a big deal and just calling him Dad of the Year, and I don't understand why. And it's like, I mean, if you really just take the time back to like peel back the layers and everything that he really just experienced and had to go through, I think he really is. Like, I would say the God of War, the Kratos in Sparta, when he was like, I don't think he was that much of a great character, but like this 2018 version, I think like they did an amazing job like developing his character.
What do you guys say about that, Jemiah?
I mean, like I said, it's a pretty basic storyline, but people act like Aloy didn't go through hardship. She was an outcast. She was raised by herself. She was fucking ostracized. Like, she fucking had to go and save the fucking same village that fucking made her. They said that fucking treated her like shit her whole life. She put the world's fucking priority above her own happiness. You know what I mean? Like, when she goes to her mother's gravesite and shit, nobody gives Aloy the chance of dating. That's what I'm saying is, people, oh my God, he's a kid now and he's softening up and all this nonsense. Cool. But people will not even give Aloy the even chance. You know what I mean? Like, to me, Kratos' story is super simplistic. It's basically like, whooping up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, to me, there's not any emotional attachment to me in this game because this kid came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not like it. You know what I mean? Like, I just come home and I got a kid now, and now I went from being the baddest dude in the world to being some father dude. I just don't feel like it deserves as much credit as people are trying to give it. People are trying to make the game more complex than what it is, in my opinion.
So here's the thing, right? Kratos' story is, and I'll let you go, Stranded. Kratos' story, which is interesting to me because it's his storyline is simplistic. Take the ashes and put it in the highest, drop it off at the highest point of Midgard, right? And then you may get some enemies along the way and some opposition, but for the most part, that's what it was. There's an overarching story about how he's distorting the Norse mythology just for him being there, and that's to me, with his progression of character throughout the game, instead of just being in the front loaded or whatever the case is, it's like if you know about more Norse mythology, or it's how he's distorting things, and you want to see like why is it distorting and all this other stuff. But him as a character, it's a linear direction, but you see the ups and downs where he gets pissed off with his son. He tries not to whoop his ass. You know what I'm saying? And then he's like, all right, cool. Let me just, calm down. And he finally you know what I mean? Like, you get stuff like that. Let me let Stranded, what you gotta say about all this? Because I know you were like, don't talk about, you was like, keep Kratos' name out your fucking mouth. So,
what's going on, folks? You hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right?
Look, he already has that. He got that twang in his voice where it snap somebody's neck. What you gotta say?
Alright, before I say about doing, I just want to make sure I can get a mic check, make sure I can say. Alright, I'm just here to hear the whole stuff about Kratos. Aloy, first of all, I love both of those characters because both of those characters are very complex in everything they do. But the problem is, why are you guys only referencing 2018 when you need to reference the entire series? Kratos is probably the most complex character that a Sony developed studio has ever created. The reason why I say that, you have to go back and really play through all the games to realize how he has been manipulated and used by the gods of Olympus in order to do their thing. It is a classic Greek tragedy of being manipulated, trying to seek redemption, because that was the only reason why he kept trying to body everything in his sight. He's trying to seek redemption from the gods. First game, the very first game, PS2 era. And you can see what the gods did in order for him to be manipulated. They used his family. And if you happen to notice, he's always been a father. His daughter, his wife, he's always been a family person, but he's always been driven by ambition. However, that ambition blinded him because he relied upon the same members that manipulated him into destroying his family to create him to be a monster. That is why the most important cutscene in 2018, if you look and see what Athena said to him, he said, "You're still a monster." He said, "Yes, but I'm your monster no longer." So he's basically breaking himself free from the shackles of guilt, from the shackles of regret. And you can't really say that that's not a complex character. Not even by 2018 standards. Let's go back further. The gods have manipulated him into killing the wife of Hades. All of these other types of gods from the PSP games that I may have just seen. And it's a video that exactly explains why Kratos is so complex. He has that emotional buildup. He's always being used. And then he took the one time to be like, "Oh no, help with this. They all gotta go. They all gotta go." Made a pact with the Titans, ascended Mount Olympus and destroyed all of Olympia. But he's consistently a tragic character in that sense that he is always trying to seek redemption for the things that he does. He has much blood on his hands, as what Tier mentioned in the trailer to Ragnarok that's about to come up. We just don't realize how it is because we're only referencing the game in which the journals say that, "Oh, well, he was always a one-note character." No, Kratos has always been complex.
I think,
which brings me to the point that most of the Sony made characters were from like the 8th generation and all that. You know, the Dusty Youngs, the Jessicas, the Ellies, the Joel Millers, and all of these other characters. They tend to play into that movie motif about, trying to see the growth into somebody throughout an entire movie. Then they hit a certain type of thing with their pacing and whatnot, and they reach an ultimate conclusion or they get killed off, that type of thing. And in general, this whole PlayStation doesn't really have like well-written protagonists. I'm like, well, I don't see too many protagonists as well-written in certain Sony games. Not saying the third parties don't. It's just that Sony has never developed themselves to have what's considered, like Jemiah just mentioned, a mascot.
right.
And within it means a mascot is showing brand recognition. So Nintendo, we had Mario. I argue Link is the mascot of Nintendo, but Mario is the more kid-friendly faces and all that. Then you have Xbox's Master Chief, which is the most dullest protagonist that I think has ever been written, but at the same time, for you to get any background with it, you have to read the novels. So Halo has a lot of lore, and it's intrinsically showing how Chief is, but he's iconic because of his look more than the character himself.
Well, did you catch what I saw? What I said earlier, Stranded? I was saying there's certain bullet points for people that will relate to, and I'm gonna ask Jeremiah what does he think about what you said if he's still in there. But there's certain bullet points. You can have a character that does badass things, which Master Chief, quote unquote, did, right? Or the characters make you laugh, i.e., Nathan Drake or Dexter, right? You have characters with multiple emotional transitions, like Joe Miller or Kratos. You have expressive body language, which would be Jin Sakai. He has more than that. Or you have like a character with a signature. You know what I mean? Kratos with his blades of chaos. And it's like, as Jemiah kind of adequately put, it's like Sony makes the whole game is good, so you can't take one piece out of the game. But it's like for any other studio, they have their own mascot. Sometimes it's just exclusively the studio, that has a mascot. I'm trying to think of a studio. Okay, so what do you call that studio again that makes Bayonetta? Platinum Games. Their mascot is Bayonetta. You know what I'm saying? So if you hear Platinum Games, you think immediately of Bayonetta, and it doesn't really work.
I would say though would be.
They don't make.
Right.
I don't think they make that. That's Square Enix.
Square published that.
No. Well, it's some systems. It's under really. It's known to be a Square Enix game.
You can tell from the font and the menus and everything. That's a Square Enix game.
The developer is Platinum Games though. Like
yeah.
I know, but like they get help from Square. It's a Square Enix game because they're literally like there's some battle systems or fighting mechanics that they consulted Platinum Games for, but it's still low key compared to what they normally would make. But it's a Square Enix game.
I would say that if these Sony develops characters are that you also have the whole Square Enix set because they have a shit ton of characters. I mean, the character from every Final Fantasy mainline. There's one memorable character from there.
Right.
The other side games, it's that.
nothing cloud. I think it's bored and shit.
That's what this is thing was saying.
I actually wanted to say something about that. With that, and you knew the background to that, because it only had to take me a little bit, and why we should all play Crisis Core, we were fans of the remake. Because the reason why Cloud seems like she's so nonchalant and almost unemotional is because during the soldier process, they have to make
All right, Devil.
bath of materia, and when they do that, it's and when they do that, it strips them from that type of personality trait. It's supposed to, at least. However, that's, not all the way like that, because even in the remake, you have Roche, you have Sephiroth, who is one of the most menacing dudes I've ever seen. But Cloud, he has that kind of nonchalantness, because again, if you pay attention to even the remake, because I only mentioned the remake or even the original, he has many flashbacks, so like he seems like he's seasoned, and that's him trying to remember what happened in Nibelheim when his whole house was burned down. And
I get what you're saying, but my thing is, you can say the same thing about Hillary. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Ben stripped her social interactions, her emotions with dealing with people. You know what I mean? She's been talking about and focus for a fucking year, so she's just used to dealing with facts, and that's it. Like people's bullshit, you know what I mean? So that's what Jay wants to speak. Yeah, I think Jay wants to speak though, Jay Worm.
Oh yeah. So I wanted to kind of bring it back because you guys brought up the whole conversation about kind of like aligning protagonists with mascots, and the reason why I don't feel like those two things are synonymous is because I feel like in some ways mascots could be a little kind of caricaturish with certain things, right? Like Crash, Sonic, Mario. You know what I'm saying? Like those recognizable faces. If you're thinking about like a good mascot for a particular game, um, yeah, if you're thinking about a good mascot for a particular game, I'm not necessarily sure if that's. I'm not 100% sure that that's necessarily gonna like determine that that is a good protagonist. It's just somebody who I can remember, right? Like I don't feel like Pikachu is a good protagonist, but he's the face of Pokemon, right? Like I don't feel like you know Mario is all that great of a protagonist, but he's the face of Nintendo. You know, like it's a difference between you know Pikachu and Albert Wesker. You know,
No, I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is when you don't have a mascot, your protagonist then become the face of your brand, right? So like Sony never, I think it's Astrobot could be their mascot, I guess, but like Sony never had like a one figure that was always there. He had Crash in the beginning, but Crash was never there. You know what I mean? So by default, you got Joel or Aloy or Kratos be the face of PlayStation because that's what people are gonna think about the most when they play the brand, right? So by default, you're gonna have those protagonists become the mascot, and those protagonists have to be compelling. That's why I say I don't. People have a more affinity for Kratos than they do Aloy, but I would say like if anything, Drake should be the mascot of Sony, right? Because he's been around there the longest, as far as like the new generations of games. You know what I mean? As far as like the new era, and not like going back freaking 15 years. Like most people nowadays never played God of War 1. You know what I mean? War 2.
yeah,
Because the game's like 20 years old. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, like,
I was gonna
the new
say,
things now, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so like when you have your protagonists, they become your de facto mascot when you don't have a mascot. You know what I mean?
And the
So
thing that
Sony's kind of weird because Sony, you know what I'm saying? Like obviously, like Nintendo, like they're solidified, right? Sega, you know, Nintendo, all that stuff, like they're solidified with their brand and their mascots and everything like that. Sony's weird because Sony's mascots, you kind of touched on it. I think Sony moves off of generations, right? So like the PS1 generation, yeah, that could be Crash or something like that. PS2, you know, that could be hell, that could be Sora from Kingdom Hearts, honestly, you know, or somebody like that. Like, so I think and they're kind of unique in that sense of where like their mascots kind of moves off of generations rather than like actual just brand recognition, like just from the beginning. So
well, let me say this before we close out that particular topic. Um, Sony never really had a mascot until the PlayStation 3. That's when they started to kind of, really solidify their stake in making good IPs. And they've been getting better ever since. Like, yeah, there's some marquee things that they check off, and it, when you make games, the problem here, they don't stick to their characters. They keep changing it up, and that makes it very difficult for somebody to latch onto. That's one problem. The other problem is that they make realistic characters that age. You know what I mean? So like, you can't stick with them anyway. Eventually, like, there's something that you can't be synonymous with. They're already showing that Drake is aging, and they don't really have anybody but Kratos, to me, that kind of sticks to the situation or sticks to like us the same look or whatever the case is. He's probably the best. It should be Kratos, unfortunately, because he doesn't age. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to stay that way or whatever the case is, and people can recognize him throughout the different generations. In terms of Aloy, Guerrilla Games was never that great with making, like, see, you can be a really good just a normal character, but the thing is, you still, because it's an entertainment piece, you still got to kind of do something to entertain someone. And Aloy, I say this over and over again, Aloy just does not have the drama that people are craving. You could fucking look at Twitter. Twitter is they want the drama. People want drama. They want that shit. And
I know people used to have like 5 boyfriends and fucking, you know what I mean, 10 baby daddies and all this shit that people be, she just start twerking on fucking, like,
on a Thunderjaw and shit.
And fucking like that. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. Like, no, I get what you're saying, though. Like, that's what they good about Sony is they allow their characters to die or leave. You know what I mean? Like, killing Joel may have been like a big, like, people may have liked it, but it was necessary. You know what I mean? I think Kratos needs to die at the end of this kind of war. I think that Drake's daughter or Chloe and Indy need to go and charge it. I think I love progression in stories. I don't want to see. Halo got too old, right? You're gonna do someone for Master Chief, right? Like you said, he's like the last action hero, right? He's kind of like a 90s type of hero, one-liners, just huge fucking set pieces. That shit has become old. You know what I mean? You can't humanize Master Chief because he was never built that way. They did it with Kratos, right? As a kid, but I don't think you can just add Chief or kid or some shit. You can't really give Chief anything to humanize him. Chief's not like a robot or anything, right? You know what I mean?
It's about what he does. It's about what he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's just a fucking. He's the last action hero. He goes in there. He's like a Doom guy, bro. He just blows shit up and gets shit done. Nobody really cares about the Doom guy storyline. You know what I mean?
The problem with
Xbox.
I'm gonna say this: the problem with Chief, and it's the problem also even with certain gaming as a convention. Why is it that we gotta learn about how this dude's character is, what is his ambitions, all that through novels and every supplementary thing instead of with the game? You know what I mean?
I agree with that. You're right.
That's the dumbest shit I see when it comes to developing stories. I can't stand certain games that has to have a whole wall of text to teach you exactly what's going on.
It's kind of lazy.
Well, Chief was designed to be like, right? That like the level of character that you just put yourself into the role, right? Like I'm Chief now. Kind of like Shepard from the Mass Effect series. Like Shepard has a lot of personality, but it's mostly based on you, right? So like you're in that role as Chief. You're a badass Spartan. You're going around blowing shit up. There's no need to have a backstory. And all you're doing is making fucking, blockbuster movies, right? It's like the 90s, right? Like I said, it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger on steroids. You're just making great movies, couple of one-liners, and that's it. You know what I mean? Just don't need to have
I think Master Chief.
You just reminded me. I consider Mass Effect, man. I'm trying to get that in the Yara pussy.
Don't do it. Don't you do it.
Let's be honest also, and let's just talk about the elephant in the room. The studio is also trying to cash in as much as they possibly can, which is why they have all the different extracurricular. They have the mangas, they have the stories, the comics, the prequels, the sequels, the requels. And they're trying to cash out as much as they possibly can, right? Which is why you see like certain games are being remastered now. Certain games are getting remakes. Some games are, all these different things as well. So,
I'll say this and I'll close out that conversation and I have a question to ask everyone, which is related to the second topic. If Sony's smart, they will cultivate the universe rather than the characters if they're going to do it this way. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you like the universe of Horizon, if anything were to happen with Aloy, should she die, the universe still is there, right? Cool. She sacrificed herself, and the world is all good now for whatever reason. Or Kratos, they have like the mythology where you just continue to go to different, religions or whatever the case is. It doesn't have to be with Kratos. Uncharted, the daughter could take over, whatever the case is, etc., etc. Or The Last of Us. That way, they can take that property and they can move that to something else, which is what they're doing. But it seems like they're getting the gist of how to do it and make compelling characters. Like the more and more shit goes on, they're starting to make more and more compelling characters that are more human, more broken. You know what I'm saying? Where people can be like, I can relate to that. Whether it be their gender or their sexuality or their traumas or anything of that nature. People can connect to it. But my question to you guys is this, right? Which I'm just completely changing the lanes here, and I'll close this out because I'm a gamer. I like the game. I heard that the Steam Deck is doing phenomenal in Japan. Matter of fact, someone says they have some personal observations. They said that the physical game dominance, while PC is mostly a digital market, perhaps Japanese are starting to embrace digital more often. So Japanese are really starting to do digital shit, right? They're not doing, unless there's like some kind of limited edition shit. But apparently they spoke to some people. It was somebody that kind of handles the Steam Deck stuff. He says he can't tell any specific numbers, but they're doing well so far, better than originally expected. Guy's name is Mr. Peterson. Now he says no doubt that the home game consoles are dominant in Japan. I guess he's talking about the Switch. He says the size of the PC game market is probably bigger than you think, and I think actually he's probably talking about PC. So apparently PCs are getting bigger. The market is getting bigger in Japan. And that leads into the Steam Deck, which is basically a mobile computer. They're talking about how the Steam Deck is doing great in Japan even. So my question to everybody that's here, do you think that Sony should take another crack at handhelds, and how do you think they should present it? Anybody can jump in.
I go first.
Yeah.
I don't think the Steam Deck. Well, they're just using the Steam Deck to pirate games and do all kind of, download all kind of mods and shit on that. They're not really using it to play the Steam wants them to play. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things that people buy and then they start doing all kind of crazy shit to it.
In Japan?
It's never about, huh?
In Japan?
Anywhere.
Okay.
Like, you think people don't know how to put mods on a computer?
No, I know, but they may not care too much for it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
We have a lot of PC game, a lot of games on Steam that are not on the Steam Deck. Like, what would be the big draw besides being a handheld? It's the capability of modding things, adding Switch games, emulators. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because other than that, you still have the same games on PC, so I don't see why it would be a big draw just to play them on handheld. Especially the battery life being so low, you're gonna get 4 hours. You know what I mean? I don't understand.
Well.
You're gonna play freaking like God of War 2018 on your Steam Deck for fucking 3 hours. You know what I mean? That's like a problem. It's all the other shit people put on the Steam Deck, right? And as far as Sony goes, Sony can't do that with their first party handheld. They can't allow you to put mods and tweak it out. You know what I mean? And jailbreak and all this shit. So that's a no-go. Then Sony has to make games just for that handheld. You can't put like Last of Us, you can't put factions on a handheld. You know what I mean? It wouldn't make sense. So I think it's the time for Sony to make a handheld. When you have VR is your lane. Sony can take over VR completely and push you forward. You know what I mean? So I think focusing on the handheld and VR and your console, I think it's just too much for them.
I mean, there's the mobile branch that they're trying to go for too. So there's that. So I wonder.
They want to play a bunch of mobile games on your fucking $400 fucking handheld?
I mean, if it's good enough, shit. If they can find a good control, like, okay, so Jay, is Jay still here? Is he still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
What do you have to say about it, man? Oh, okay, hold on, let me invite Mr. Sword Saint. Yeah, what do you gotta say about this?
Shit, I didn't even think about what he said, regarding the VR. But yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. I mean, look, they tried it twice, and they were somewhat kind of successful the first time, and it failed the second time. I don't know. I think that, look, you have the most powerful system out right now. You have what looks to be a monopoly in the VR market. I mean, if you feel like you're trying to, there's another section out there that you're trying to reach as far as like your product goes, if you're unable to still get a PS5 and you feel like, you know, it'd be better to get a handheld, God bless. I mean, I'm not gonna get it. I'll be honest. I'm happy with my PS5. So I mean, I don't feel like I have to get. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what would be your selling point? I just don't see. I don't see a good selling point on coming out with a handheld right now in 2022.
I see.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to co-sign what you were just saying. I never had a PSP or a PS Vita, but I think with where we're kind of going right now with like the trends and everything, they'd be kind of stepping backwards to like try to put another device in everyone's pocket, especially when companies, not just gaming companies, are trying to like kind of reduce what we kind of carry, making it into wearables and stuff like that. So
Hold on. Is this sword? Is this sword? Is this sword speaking right now?
No, I think it was a Kerr or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Kerr. Yeah, it's Kerr. Okay, my bad. I ain't gonna cut you off. It doesn't show me who's talking right now. Go on, man. I'm sorry. What's going on, bro?
Oh my, I'm not sure what was the last thing you heard me say.
No, I was wondering who was talking, and it doesn't show who's talking. It just keeps saying that Jeremiah is talking. No, you were saying. Yeah, go on, please.
Oh no, that was basically. I was just agreeing with Jay. Like, I mean, I have a PS5. I love it. I couldn't see myself going out of my way to get like a portable device to play my PS5 games. Like, it just kind of seems awkward. Like, I kind of have the setup I have now to like be on the couch and have that like nice cinematic kind of experience, or whatever the case may be. But in the event that I want to play like Last of Us or something on the go, or I was really into the game, I would just use the PS app on my phone and get the little connector and just use that. And I feel like that, that's more than enough. Like, maybe just, invest into that app.
Didn't Sony just make that backbone thing?
They didn't make it.
Right.
It's a third party
Or
but
did
yeah.
they co-sign? What is it? Did they co-sign though?
Yeah, it's co-signed. Yep. Yeah. So I brought up that before we close shop, and Kerr, thank you so much for actually contributing in the conversation. I have one more question for you, because I know you said something about Aloy a couple of times, or Horizon Forbidden West a couple of times, but
Yeah.
the thing is, before you go on, I want to just put my little piece in there, and I'll just ask you. I don't think that. The question is going to come up, especially the weebs. They're going to go off on this. Oh, you see, Japan, they got a handheld and people love it, and they're Sony stupid for doing it. It's like they tried twice. You know what I'm saying? Cell phones are basically. That's why I wanted to kind of ask and see. I ain't gonna lie to you. I bought a PSP. This is back when I was in high school and shit like that, and I was just like. It was good for me back then because I would use the transit, you know what I'm saying, to go to work and stuff like that. So it worked out for me, and I kind of bought into the idea of, if you're traveling like that, then you have to have some sort of thing to keep you occupied, and you really didn't need it, truthfully. Then I got the Vita, and the Vita, I never use that system unless I'm traveling somewhere or I was doing laundry. When I had to take my clothes to the laundromat way back when, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, maybe in Japan they could do something, but I could see why they wouldn't want a device they gotta manage and market. It's like a lot. And I just wanted to kind of nip that shit in the bud before people start running around talking about Sony is stupid for not investing in this shit, because it always will happen. But Kerr, I wanted to ask you about the Protagonists for PlayStation, and there was a gripe that you had with Forbidden West. So could you speak on that?
Yeah, for sure. Just to kind of go back to what you were saying real quick before we transition into the Steam Deck, I think a lot of people don't consider the fact that the Steam Deck is actually like a computer at the end of the day, and you could modify it, and you could hack it, and you could do all that extra stuff. Kind of like what the PSP and the PS Vita did back then. I think they were kind of ahead of its time. It's just one of those things you kind of had to be the martyr and then everyone else kind of takes your idea and kind of runs with it. So I do think Sony had the right idea. It was just way too early back then. Because looking back and just seeing what people did with the PSP hacking modifications, that could have been the iPhone of today if Sony, kind of focused on it. But aside from this,
Did Sony want that? I don't think Sony wanted them to be hacking, right?
No, he's just saying that about how they didn't. Of course, they didn't want it, but he was saying how it's too early. It was released too early. Like the world wasn't really ready for something like that because they didn't know. Like, you know what I mean? It was an early device that was in a quasi state. The thing that limited it is the optical drive. That was one of the things. And if you did try to use the memory cards, they were expensive as hell. But it did things that the phones didn't even do back then. Like it was before that shit. So like you had like iPhone come out and make that shit into like it was an iPod back in the day. It did things that no phone did actually. And then these phones started coming out that did all these game stuff. But yeah, they were too early. It's unfortunate.
I remember going to middle school, and I went to school with this one girl, and she had a PSP. She was not a gamer at all, but she used the PSP to literally like look up, whatever research she had to do. If she's trying to like figure something out, whatever. She used it as like a personal PC essentially. So that was like it was way bigger than that. And I think they had the potential, but
And
I
the
don't think
from
Sony
the
was too focused
firmware.
at that time.
The firmware you can literally. I remember when the PSP first came out, they didn't have a browser, and then they updated it to put a browser on there, which was fucking crazy. Like that was unheard of. But
MP3 player. Yeah.
Right. And now imagine that Sony was like in the smartphone market and still makes some of the components for like for the iPhone and some of the top selling Android phones or whatever the case may be. But they were in the smartphone market and they never could really capture that. But if they just took the time to like refocus and it's like, oh, we have this PlayStation brand, we have these handheld devices, we kind of have that tech down and we're trying to break into this like mobile space. Let's focus and like bring these two things together and make like a real device where it's like that appeals to like the traditional gamer in a sense, right? Where it's like we all need a cell phone anyway, but if I could buy a cell phone and I could play like Bloodborne on it or something like that, it's like, whoa, that's different, right? Like that's
They tried it because they were like they kind of were in the smartphone market, and they were like kind of up there competing with Apple and Samsung and everything like that. But I mean, it just got to a point where they just got left behind. Original ideas and got really lazy with the design and concepts and features, and yeah.
the problem was PlayStation is back then they were so fragmented. And that was a Japanese custom. That's how they kind of operated back then. They were so fucking fragmented that each department was their own company essentially, and they should have literally had more synergy. You know what I'm saying? Because literally the PSP was a smartphone.
Right. Sony also it's a what's it called a company that makes hardware, right? So they're making fucking phones, fucking DVD players, Blu-ray players, CD players. They're making so much shit. I don't think that the PSP was on the front of the forefront of their minds. Cameras, all these lenses, all these movie things. Like they're doing so much shit when it comes to other things. That's like as far as electronics go. I don't think the PSP in the phone market was ever anything that they seriously tried to like go crazy. And they used to make computers and laptops and shit. Remember that shit? Like what was it, the Sony BIOS or some shit?
Yeah, the
They
thing.
used to make computer games, PlanSide, all EverQuest. So like I think people forget that Sony like used to do a lot of shit. They had to focus their shit on certain things because
They had to close.
sustainable. Apple really dominated the fucking market. Apple and Samsung really just took that shit over.
See, the thing is with Apple, right? They had to stop making extracurricular shit too, and just focus on the MP3 players and the iMacs and shit like that. And then they started branching out and just did straight what we know now. But they had to close a whole bunch of different departments. Sony started to do that as well. They're not making this and that, and now they can they have more synergy. But Kerr, what do you have to say about what were you saying about the when I was asking about the Aloy and the protagonist and stuff like that?
Oh, and the pro, yeah, I heard a bit of that conversation. With her, so for me personally, I had the PS1, PS2, the PS3 era. I had a 360, and that was simply because that's what everyone had at the time. And I didn't want to play by myself. Then PS4, now five. Um, I've never tried, like, I tried the first Horizon game, and it was just way too boring for me. Like, I just couldn't get past like the first 2 hours. It was just, there was nothing really like captivating for me. I felt like I was playing like a reskin Tomb Raider in a weird way without Lara Croft. So I was like, what? And then, but that's just that was just 2 hours of gameplay for the first Horizon. And don't get me wrong, I think it's like a beautiful game and it looks great. But like, it just I haven't. That's what I was asking you. Like, can you upload like a boss fight video or something, like something that kind of makes me want to go, okay, that shit looks cool. Let me go try it, like check it out. But right now, everything I'm seeing is about the graphical fidelity and how pretty it is, which is great. But like, I feel like I got scammed with that when I got Ratchet and Clank, like the PS5 version. I felt it was like a glorified tech demo, and I feel like Horizon is like in that same realm. It's like, here's like a basic action adventure. Like, I don't know, it just seems so soulless. Like, it doesn't seem like the game was created with any soul. It seemed like it was created to like show you everything that we could do on the PlayStation, and you could kind of feel it in the play. Like, I don't know, it just feels kind of empty. But that's
You only played 2 hours. What you even
Wait,
know?
wait.
I'm about to- I'll fall back because I'm about to lose it.
No worries. And this is my opinion. Like, there's like, okay, so like, I just bought. My friend just recommended to me L.A. Noire, right? It came out years ago. I've never played it before. I've been sinking hours into that. Like, it's really good. It's fun. I'm enjoying myself. Like, I do.
How? That game is not fun.
You can't tell. It's his opinion.
What's fun?
No.
What's fun?
The whole interrogation shit gets old as fuck. The interrogation shit gets super old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Let him live.
It's my first playthrough, so for me, it's like I'm enjoying it. I like the what is it, Until Dawns, and I enjoyed Detroit Become Human, like that kind of like okay.
Oh, you like to play movies, then that's why you don't like Horizon. That's why Horizon's all action. You know what I mean?
I just picked up the Aquarium, so.
I don't know. I tried Horizon. I didn't like it. I play other action games. Like I did the whole Elden Ring thing this year, beat Sekiro this year, halfway through, the Demon Souls. I did, what have I played of? The Cyberpunk.
You probably like at the best falls, huh?
Wait. So let me say this. So, hold on. Wait. Jemiah, hold on. I got this. So I hear this a lot about Horizon being soulless, right? And
so wait, is that a common critique? Because I actually just said that. I didn't know that was like a.
it's a vocal. Okay. There's a vocal minority. You know what I'm saying? And it's a because you don't sell like 10 million plus units twice. You know what I'm saying? For shit that doesn't work, or it doesn't. That's not a good game. The thing is,
absolutely.
The thing is
Hold on.
What happened?
Oh no, sorry, I ain't gonna cut you off. Cause I was gonna say, well, I mean, if you're gonna say they sold 1 million plus games, I mean, if I buy it in a bundle for a PS4 or PS5, I mean, just
I said 10. I said 10. I said.
Let's keep that energy, bro. You know what I mean?
Wait, hold on. Wait. I said 10 million. 10 million plus, right? So that's what's going on, right? Also, you got Ubisoft games and all sorts of things that can be in a bundle. So it sold at least 10 million on its own twice. You know what I'm saying? There are people that like the game. So there's that. I will say.
I'm taking nothing away from it.
No, I know. But here's the thing, right? When people buy bundles, right? Especially nowadays, when you buy a bundle, you are buying the game kind of discounted, but still buying the game. You know what I'm saying? So you would have some sort of partial interest in buying or playing the game if you buy a bundle. Like if a PS5 is like, you know what I mean? Like $550 plus tax. It's like, okay, then you know that you know what I'm saying? Like you're still buying the game. You know,
Right.
it's not like you're getting it for
Bro,
free.
games have been bundled since the beginning of time, and all of a sudden people want to start like they're like, wait a minute, this bundle.
No. I mean, don't.
Like,
No.
No. The only reason I'm saying that, right? Because, like, literally, my friend just bought a PS5, maybe a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, something like that, for his fiance. And it was the Horizon Forbidden West bundle, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, he's one of those people, like, he's just Xbox everything, right? And the only reason why he bought a PS5 was so he could play MLB The Show. So, like, he didn't know nothing about Horizon. He didn't know nothing about that. Matter of fact, I'm the one that actually, like, recommended him, like, hey, I heard that was a really good game. Like, you should tell either you or your fiance should play that because that's a really good game to play. But, I mean, that just kind of goes to show you where it's just like, the scarcity of just, like, the system nowadays. Well, fuck it, I'm just going to buy this bundle because I just want a PS5. I don't know nothing about this game, but hey, if I play it, I play it.
Look, so I can address him and so I can play my fucking games, people. I'm going to address this, right? Don't let no Xbot tell you that these bundles don't make a difference. They make a pretty big fucking difference. Let's keep that a stack, right?
Yeah.
But at least it's so about 10 million by itself, right? Without having the bundles. They already said that the game without the bundles is like the 4th best-selling game in the US.
That's pretty impressive.
No, I'm not taking nothing away from
No,
it.
I
I'm
know,
just
but you're
saying
just wondering, like, I know you're not taking away from it, but you're like, well, what is the success rate for the game? So going back to Horizon, Kerr, the game is not, it doesn't do anything flashy. So I always have this conversation with one of my friends, and he's like, oh, he likes the Nathan Drake collection, he likes like Uncharted, he likes the, those particular games where you have, see, the thing is, and I was mentioning this too, about how you make main characters, and main characters sometimes can push you over the edge and make you like a game more than what it is, right? More than gameplay, and especially in the time that we live in, where people are just like, they want to have their feelings tickled, you know what I'm saying? Horizon really doesn't do that. It's about the world, and in terms of the boss, there really aren't bosses in this game per se.
Gotcha.
So what happens within the game is that you do have a linear story, but it's an open world, and each area within this world has its own story contained in that town, right? That's how they do things. The machines that you play, the more you. Well, I'm about to explain that. So basically, the way that the game is designed, right? You go from east to west. The further west you go out, the more difficult the game is. So they'll start drip feeding different machines. Now, the way that the combat works within the game is that you got to do all of the badassery. You have to. You gotta slide the character under the machine, you know what I mean, and hit a particular point, and then jump up. You gotta do all that. Most games go into a QTE to tickle your fancy and shit like that. You know what I mean? Also, when you play LA Noire, it's mostly like you can see it's the acting that gets people more engaged. And because you got to work for the action that's in the game or work for your enjoyment, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you got to play the game. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people gaming fingers and gaming the part of their mind that is entertained by challenge have atrophied. Horizon is a more difficult game than a Souls game, flat out, due to its execution. You can't kind of gimp it or cheat it like you could in. You can't just, let me farm for souls so I can get better. Let me just kill the same level 1 enemy over and over and over again until I can get better. That doesn't work in this game. You really gotta be accurate and take the pieces off the machine so you can kill it. Now here's the thing. The game works like Pokemon. Have you ever played Pokemon before?
Yeah, like back in the day.
You know how they have one Pokemon is weak to another Pokemon? And then you can, think about the anime, right? When Pikachu was going after Onyx, right? Pikachu, electricity wasn't going to fight. It wasn't going to fuck with the ground. So he used the fucking sprinklers, the wet Onyx, and then he used the electricity to amplify it. So that's how this game works. So what you would do is you would drench the enemy that's kind of impervious to like ice. You would drench the enemy in water, like these arrows or water bombs. It just drenches the enemy in some kind of fluid, right? Let's think of like coolant or whatever. Once it's completely drenched, then you can use freezing arrows to freeze it. If the enemy is in a brittle state from the ice, then all of your arrows will be double damaged. They have weak spots in there, and you gotta aim at the weak spots to take the enemy down as quickly as possible. If you don't know what you're doing, like it's a lot of stuff that you don't see when you look at the game. Now, in terms of visual stuff, I've posted videos of me doing action shit, but I also like the way the game looks. You know what I mean? I can't just sit there and spend hours
It's a
upon.
beautiful game. Don't get me wrong. I think the game is absolutely like gorgeous. Like that'd probably be the main selling point for me, just to have it in my collection, put it on, and be like, "Look at this."
You definitely need to, and it's not an easy game. That's what really kills. It kills the experience because a lot of this happened with Killzone years ago, right? When people play Call of Duty, all they had to do was aim down sights, and the engine will aim at the fucking enemy for you. But it made you feel good when you killed it. You know what I'm saying? When you play Killzone, you had to do the aim, and people are like, I'm not good at the game. I don't like how it feels. But really, what that translates into is that they didn't really want to work for the kill. They were bad at the game. So it's hard to kind of quantify it. They don't really have bosses. You know what I'm saying? There's big machines, which I guess you could consider a boss, but it's not really a boss because you'll see them around and they'll position these machines in certain points of the story where you have to kind of fight the thing. So you got to pick up the lore in the game. The lore in the game, I think someone complained about, like, why the hell do I have to read a book? But all the books are inside this game. So the way that Horizon works, I'll just give you like a detailed rundown and very quickly, is that technology ruled everything, right? Technology was the downfall of the humans. They created these war machines because they had a lot of political issues that we have nowadays, right? So everybody was like, oh, you keep throwing humans at other humans and killing people. So they created machines as soldiers, right? Someone had the bright idea to create a machine that when it's on a battlefield, it could use biodegradable matter like leaves and animals and shit like that and convert it with nanomachines into fuel. That part of the machines couldn't turn off. So these machines were just like eating everything. And it ended up wiping out humanity, essentially, is what ended up happening. They had a plan before humanity was wiped out to go underground and allow it to be wiped out and then have another benevolent AI to reconstitute the biosphere and everything else. And then have all these humans that were like zygotes or whatever. Basically, they reborn the Earth essentially with the humans and stuff like that. But something happened where the knowledge was all fucked up. Like they had the whole schools and stuff like that. So when the Earth was repopulated with leaves and shit like that and animals, they would come out of these pods, and then they would be able to learn humanity again and learn what happened. But something destroyed the actual all knowledge of humans, and that's why they are in the future without knowledge of where they came from, and all these machines are all over the place, which was put on the Earth to like keep the biosphere, from collapsing. So that's how the story is. You got to go into it and kind of like, if you do want to play it, you gotta learn the story and be interested in that type of world and discover what actually happened, why there's a loss in knowledge. That's what kept me going. Not necessarily main character, but why was there a loss in knowledge? What caused that to happen?
I got the subscription, the PlayStation subscription. I think the first Horizon's in there, and I started it, and the same thing kind of happened again. But maybe I'll try it like in a better mind space and see how much further I get. Like it might just be one of those slow burns for me.
It is. It is. You know what was a slow burn for me was The Witcher and The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I still don't like The Last of Us Part 2 for my own specific reasons.
Okay.
But I can't deny the gameplay when you play it. Sometimes you go back to a game and you're in a different mindset. Like sometimes if you in your mind be like fuck this game, or you have a preconceived notion of a game, then you just not going to be you're not going to be open period for it. You just don't care. You can't convince it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like racism. You're a Horizon Zero Dawn racist. So
I feel so terrible because buying my PS5 this generation, like my friend called me a gaming snob in the PS4 era because if it wasn't certain hit titles, I wasn't gonna go out my way to buy it. So like now I legit just go out of my way and I'll just like buy a game every week I get paid and just build up a backlog regardless if I tried it or not. And I feel bad because I feel like I got every Sony exclusive that came out this year but Horizon.
No, I mean it gets honestly.
I was literally tweeting like a few weeks ago. I was like, "Oh, fuck The Last of Us remake part 1. I don't want that shit until it like drops to $30." And then I saw like a couple of like gameplay footage on the timeline. I was like, "No, this shit is pretty. Fuck that." And I ran out, got that shit like the next day, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. But then after that, I was like, that's fucked up because I played this game before and I still haven't played Horizon. And so I was just waiting for I don't know if you sold me all the way, but I definitely could see Horizon getting into my library over time. Like I see myself just eventually caving and playing because that's the same thing that happened with me with God of War. When I got my PS4, I was a little late to get that game, and I think I was playing Red Dead Redemption prior to that, and I was going through Red Dead Redemption. It had all the hype, and everyone was calling it like Game of the Year, all this great stuff, and I would have agreed with people, but I felt the controls on Red Dead were absolute dog shit.
It is doggy shit.
So what I decided to do, because I was so pissed, because it's like, when you have such a good game, a good story and everything, but you really cannot interact with it the way you want to, and you just feel like the game is fighting you to play.
It's like, no, technologically, it is really like the input latency is the highest of any fucking game. So it's so bad that they rely on auto aim. In terms of the storyline, I wasn't really with, what's his name? He having to plan all the time and it fucks up over and over and over again. I wasn't really with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Watch was like that for me too.
I was like, damn, why you keep listening to this nigga, yo? He don't know what he doing. You just keep you just over and over. Like, stop listening to him. He's leading you off the cliff. Like, what are you doing? So, another thing was God of War, too. God of War, that's another thing, too, that kind of like really fucking got me. You know what I mean? In terms of God of War. I literally thought that, I was like, I mean, the storyline was great, but I was like, the gameplay kind of sucks. And then I played it a couple years later. I was like, ooh, this is kind of fire a little bit.
I thought the combat in God of War blew me away. Like, I don't know why, but everything just felt crisp. Like,
sometimes it's like that.
It felt like they worked on the combat first, and then everything else was built around the combat. At least how it felt to me.
Sometimes it's like that, though.
The story was dog shit, though. I thought the story.
Hold on. What? Hold on.
Yo, your shit is all skewed, yo. I'm gonna need you to
yo. What's the better story? Like, all right.
I never played Horizon, so I can't comment on the story.
God of War was a masterclass on storytelling. Like, you had to, right before I played God of War, and it kind of hit different for me because I had dad issues growing up. So I kind of can relate. A lot of people, you ain't the only person that say this, Kurt. So you ain't the only person that I've ran across that doesn't like the story of God of War. Like, they feel like Kratos he's just selfish and everything else like that. And they addressed that in God of War 18. They addressed that Kratos had to come to grips with, okay, yeah, my father abandoned me. I grew up in a hellhole. I lost my brother.
And I was tortured, I was beaten, I was all of these different things. My other brother tried to kill me, and I had to try to save my younger brother, and I lose him the same way. So we got this fractured family. We all over the place. Not to mention, I'm the leader of the Spartans. So you know what I'm saying? Like, this is like 300 if they never lost, and they end up still losing because Kratos wants it all. So, like, even after he got what he wanted, which was vengeance, he still didn't feel whole. And then he realized, damn, I destroyed my home, my family, everything else trying to get back at my father, right? So in 2018, I'm assuming everybody's played it here, right? And shout out to Alyssa, man. You be getting these fire stations, dog, and I'm glad you're recording them and putting them on YouTube. So
Appreciate that.
like, for real, like, I'm telling you, like, so as a person who went through that, who had them type of thoughts, and then when you get older, you realize the real story, and you realize that, yeah, your dad was kind of, he was kind of crappy, but it wasn't the whole story behind what happened. But you still not let him slide. You owe everything to your mom, your other family, your friends, and this is affects you in relationships and everything else like that. To see him to say, okay, I'm finna raise this boy who's not my son. I lost my daughter. Matter of fact, I accidentally killed my wife and kids because my brother has got me in chains. Even though he knows that I'm his brother, he knows that we could have thrown over Olympus together, and he you see this man like atone for his sins by raising this boy who is going through the exact same thing that he went through.
And he sees he sees himself and his son. He's like, motherfucker, Spartan rage. He was, oh hell no, you can't be doing all that. You know what I mean? He ain't going down this
And not
path.
just that, you got to think about Thor, and we think about Thor and Loki. It's the exact same story. I mean, Kratos is a fictitious story, right? Like, and he exists in the pantheon, the Greek pantheon, but in the way that they told this story, he does not exist, right?
Stranded said this too. Stranded said that this is a and you came in all late. I'm trying to close out and shit. Trying to play this game, trying to get these.
I have to come back to part two of it, but I'm just saying, like, if you look at it from that lens, like, God of War is one of the best games ever. On that, if you look at it from in its totality of where it is and where it's about to go, is going to be even crazier.
I love the fact that, like, every time I hear people say, "Oh, it's just him, just doing this and that and blah blah blah," it's not that deep. I'm like, there's a lot of shit going on with this story other than Kratos. This is way bigger than Kratos. The fact that like I said, the fact that he's this.
I had to go out of my way because God of War, the follow up is coming up, Ragnarok. I'm definitely getting that day one, but I had to go back and I had to watch a YouTube video to kind of see why everyone was so excited, or like why it's why it's so hype. Because like I said, I think the gameplay wise, if we're focusing on combat, great, but like, even with everything you just said, like, I watched a YouTube video that kind of covered the story of Kratos and like kind of how we ended up at the 2018 God of War, and I was like, all right, that kind of helps and puts things in perspective. But it was just me as a new player to the whole God of War franchise, picking up 2018 and just going into it. All I saw was like a really great combat game. Right.
Oh yeah, you missed all of it.
You missed the whole that shit. I think I know what Kerr's issue is. Kerr's issue is this, and it's like one of my friends. You like this flashy shit, yo. If that shit ain't bling bling flashy shit, yo, you like.
It's not even that. No.
I don't want to hear it, yo. You's a flashy ass motherfucker, yo. That's what it is.
Listen, he's right though, because a lot of games they'll drop you in the middle of this lore-laden series. Like, I felt like that with Fallout 3. Like, I didn't realize that the Brotherhood of Steel and the, what's the other faction? Like, they had been beefing for, in the game, 200 years, and in the real world, it was like 10 or 15 years between Fallout 2, which was an RTS game, and Fallout 3. So you got all of this lore that, or even with Elders, or what was it, Elder Scrolls? Like you jump into Skyrim, you don't know that it's all these different. I mean, yeah, you do, but you don't really know, and you can't see these different realms and different places that these people been at.
Who fault is that though? Who fault is that? Oh, you should have played it. Y'all jumping in. Yo, this is the equivalent, right? This is like watching fucking Endgame, right? You coming in here? You coming in Endgame 45 minutes in there? Yo, what happened? I mean, the action is pretty good, but like,
No, here's the thing. If it was supposed to continue off with the story, if they had just called it God of War, whatever number it was, then said that, then I would have been like, oh, there's a number in there. Like, you know, if I never knew Resident Evil and I never touched it, right? But they're showing Resident Evil 8 in my head, I'm like, oh shit. Maybe I should go back and play 1 through 7.
oh, you gonna do this? You gonna do the semantics thing, yo? That's whack. Whack.
Think about this though. You have to also think about this. It's a term of the way that they like reintroduced God of War on the PS4 system, right? It represents rebirth and it represents starting over again, just like how Kratos had to do, right? He basically had to start all over again in this new world that he, just found himself in, having to get reacclimated into that whole area of just basically living as a man, not even as a god anymore, because he stripped himself of all of that from Sparta, right? Once he got to, I think Jotunheim or wherever it was, I forgot.
Yeah, it was Jotunheim. Yeah.
But once he got there, he pretty much had to strip himself of everything of who he originally was, and it was like it was a way of like rebirth, and that's the reason why they named it God of War.
I mean, he is the god. He's going to be the God of War, Greek mythology. I mean, of the Norse mythology. So there's that. I mean, look, I get it, but
and I'm not trying to like say that the game is like, maybe, like I said, it seems like with the backstory and everything going into this game, you would have like a way better thing with the story. And I do think they did a decent job at least giving you some sort of backstory, right? Like as a new character, like this is who you're following, this is the guy, this is the son. There's that bitch in the woods that does her fairy shit, like all that good shit. You go around to the different realms and you have to talk, like cool, following that. But within that one game, like within that one release, I felt like the story, like the way people go about that story, I was expecting something along the lines of like a Last of Us or something, or Red Dead Redemption.
I mean, it is though.
You didn't get that from it?
Huh?
You didn't get that?
No, not at all. Like,
I see. I told you he liked that flashy shit. He like them.
No, but okay, bro. Here's the thing. You keep saying I like that flashy shit, but guess what? My favorite PlayStation game is of all time now. It's Bloodborne.
It's that shit flashy.
It's not. The story is obtuse as fuck. It was my first Soulsborne game, and I played that game, and it was really like I think the last game I played before Bloodborne that really had like an impact on me, like, whoa, this is good, was like World of Warcraft back when I was in high school, and it was like, two different games, but like just to play like just whatever. And I don't think Bloodborne is like super flashy or anything. But
yo, that shit. Do you see the weapons? You see the weapons? You see the blood? Yo, nigga, that shit flashy. That shit one of the flashiest. All that blood. You got the blood.
You fight that blood, the nurse. What's the nurse of what you call it? Nothing but blood. Nurse? Yeah, Marvel's Wet Nurse. Yeah.
He's like drenched in blood. This motherfucker. Yo. The way that he walks towards his enemy, like you can make him walk and then open up that fucking cleaver, yo. And he just has that shit out. Like Morpheus in the Matrix Reloaded with that sword and shit, that katana. And he just go over there and roll. The dash, yo, that's just a flashy fucking game and it's simple. But But yo, what's going on, yo? I'm gonna start. Yo, y'all fucked me. Y'all got me fucked up. Yo, I tried. I'm trying to be nice. I'm like, all right, cool. I got stage block sitting there trying to jump in. Y'all know I said I'm trying to finish this shit. Look.
My bad, man.
My bad.
No, I should have put the tweet out a little earlier. And like I said before, if you're watching this shit on YouTube, you can hear you guys talk. And I think this is the best way of doing it, so everybody is like, like a cohesive experience. But yeah, man, yo, I didn't even think, honestly, low key, I thought that this was a decent topic that I was wanted to say. Catch the beginning of this shit, yo, because we started talking about how like, well, this is on YouTube too. We started talking about how, like, what makes a good character, what Sony needs to do. I'm gonna split this shit up on YouTube.
Yeah, I heard a bit of that, like who you guys were thinking was Sony's mascot, and I was just like, well, shit. I think you made a very good point. It's like they never really like cater to any of them. It's like whatever game is hot at the moment, they kind of run with it.
I think they just worried about.
Have a part 2 of this because I think I forget the guy's name. It escapes me, but he was just saying like he can't think of any good characters like that Sony's came up with, and I'm just sitting in the listener section like, what? Are you serious?
I think we do need to do a part 2, so I'm gonna do it on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it Sony's Protagonists Part 2, yo, and I'm gonna put.
I can think of like 5.
Y'all need to y'all need to stop, think about it, and then get back to the topic, yo. I'm gonna say Part 2 like The Last of Us, yo. It's gonna be like that how they wrote that shit. Part. But yeah, yo, appreciate everybody come out there. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel Illicit Therapy if you haven't. It's all recorded there. I'm gonna start slicing this video up and shit like that if YouTube will allow me to do it, but it'd be acting all fugazi. So, but listen, you guys take care. I'm gonna start my Gran Turismos, Ryan and shit like that. And I'm a gamer. I play my games though. But yeah, you guys have a good night, yo. I appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting me out too.
Not a problem.